This is a welcome address by Dr. Mrs. Emma Oseji, coordinator of Berachah Community Clinic, Youth Friendly Center, and executive director of Public Health Impact Research Center on the occasion of the sensitization program for youths to end sexual violence this day, Tuesday, 20th August, and is being organized via Zoom. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the sensitization program for youths on ending sexual violence, organized by Berachah Community Clinic, Youth Friendly Center, in collaboration with Public Health Impact Research Center. Berachah Community Clinic, Youth Friendly Center was officially opened on Tuesday, 29th August 2023, with the aim of providing a place in Asaba, the capital of Delta State of Nigeria, where adolescents and youths can be engaged on a one-to-one basis and steered onto more productive parts of life through training on computer appreciation and other aspects of ICT, provision of support to adolescents and youths with special education needs, training of peer educators, organization of programs to create awareness about issues of adolescent sexual and reproductive health, management of cases of sexual assault and drug abuse, organization of indoor and outdoor games, organization of book reading programs, and lots more. We also have a library where books can be read by youths who are members of the center. The time of operation is every Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Registration for membership is also free, and members are encouraged to come with another person to make their experience more enjoyable. Public Health Impact Research Center is a research-based non-governmental organization founded in June 2002, that's 2002, and dedicated to the promotion of the health of the public in Nigeria and Africa. We have a sister organization known as Christoria Ventures, which supports events through hiring of projector screen, laptop computer, public address system, canopies, chairs, tables, as well as space for 20 to 50 persons, provision of ice block for cooling drinks. All these are provided at very moderate prices. I would like you to also know that there will be a quiz on ending sexual violence on Tuesday, 27th August, 2024 at 4 p.m. via Zoom. The winner will get a prize of 10,000. Berachah Community Clinic Youth Friendly Center offers free counseling and testing for HIV every Tuesday from 12 noon to 3 p.m. We'll be sharing during the course of this webinar the link to join the Raising 1,000 Nigerian Youths with a Vision annually, Aru 1,000 Naiwava, the Telegram group. So the link will be shared, will be posted in the chat box. We would also like you to send a text or WhatsApp message to 080-230-15944 to receive a registration form to join the Youth Club of Public Health Impact Research Center. We'll talk more about that later. On this note, I wish to thank you all for honoring our invitation and contributing to making this day a reality. Thank you, and God bless. I'm going to now go on to the presentation. This presentation is on ending sexual violence. And as said before, I am Dr. Mininim Oseji. Currently, I am the chair of the Medical Women's International Association Violence Against Women and Girls Special Interest Group. I'm also the permanent secretary, Delta State Ministry of Environment, Asaba, Nigeria. I'm the founder and executive director of Public Health Impact Research Center. I'm a part-time consultant with Federal Medical Center, Asaba, Nigeria. I'm the medical director of Berachah Community Clinic that houses the Youth Friendly Center. I'm also a visiting senior lecturer at Accra College of Medicine. So with that background, I'd like to let you know that ending sexual violence is something that everybody must participate in. And by way of introduction, it will interest you to know that the 2018 Nigerian Demographic Survey, NDHS, indicated that 31% of women aged 15 to 49 have experienced physical violence, and 9% have experienced sexual violence. So if you go to a room and there are 100 women, about 10 of them has experienced sexual violence. And I know from a personal experience that this is true, because when I had a program to do free, when I had a program to do, I had the opportunity rather to carry out cervical screening for prevention of cancer of the cervix. The cervix is that part of the woman's body at the neck of the womb. And when the woman is in labor, it is the cervix that dilates to determine how ready she is to deliver. So if you have been in the labor ward before, you hear when they say, oh, she's 2 cm dilated, 5 cm dilated, 10 cm dilated means full dilatation. And it's at that point they begin to ask the woman to push. So that cervical screening, one of the questions we ask is, at what age did they have their first sexual encounter? And was it with their husband? I was shocked when many women told me that they were raped. Their first sexual encounter was through rape, and my heart bled. So when the NDHS says that almost 1 in 10 women have experienced sexual violence in Nigeria, I know that it is not lying. The highest percentage of this violence is 67.6% from Taraba State, with the lowest being Jigawa State, with a percentage of 4.4%. Now, acts of sexual violence, such as raping of women, is a crime that is on the increase in Nigeria. It is often misunderstood and surrounded by lots of myths. One commonly believed myth is that rape is primarily a sexual act, and unintentionally they put the victim of the rape or sexual assault or sexual violence on trial. They will begin to question her motives, her dressing, and her actions. And this is not just by the law enforcement officials. Sometimes even her family and friends may also act in a manner as if to blame her for the act. The woman's credibility may be questioned, and then they begin to make public her sexual activity and private life. And that is not fair, because sex, whether you condone, whether it is within marriage or outside marriage, it has to be by consent for it not to be a crime. The morality of it is not what we're talking about. We are talking about the criminal act of forcing a woman to have sex when she did not give her consent. And then, because of the guilt, embarrassment, and humiliation, sexual violence such as rape is highly underreported. And because it's not reported, it's difficult for policymakers, program managers to determine how they are going to end it. How are they going to eliminate it? How are they going to prevent it? Psychologists and sociologists have shown that rape is a crime of violence, often regarded by the woman as a life-threatening act in which fear and humiliation are her dominant emotions. For the man, sexual desire is less a motivation than violent aggression. And this is true because when we organized International Day of the Boy Child in May 2021 under the auspices of the Medical Women's Association of Nigeria, we found out that I was asking we organized that International Day of the Boy Child at Oppenham High School here in Delta State. And I asked a question to the boys: why do boys rape girls? And one said, oh, when they are not nice to us, when they annoy us, that is what boys do. So that means the boy feels aggrieved and wants to express his aggression, and his expression of aggression is through rape, to humiliate the victim, that is the girl that, according to him, annoyed him. So for them to have that notion must have been handed down by people older than them. And for it to change, we have to start disabusing their minds that there are many ways you can display your annoyance, aggression, without committing a criminal act. We also call upon the church to take responsibility for inculcating good values and biblical principles to congregations, starting from children classes. We have to teach young boys that the new definition of masculinity should be standing up against peer pressure, against injustice, with all, using God's gifts, physical strength to the benefit of all. So when you hear of people being gang raped, it is something that is planned. It doesn't happen by accident. Five boys cannot just by accident see a girl and say, okay, let's go and just start attacking her, assaulting her. They plan it. They pick the time when the girl will pass a particular place she normally passes. They plan the time when nobody will be around and everywhere is quiet, so nobody can catch them. And they plan how they're going to lure her or carry her to a quiet place. So the question now is it everybody that is involved in the plan? Is it everybody that is willing to participate? Are there some bystanders that hear about the plan and they just say, it's none of my business? That is where the strength and masculinity of the boy, of the young man should come in. When you hear people planning to do such evil, such criminal acts, you have to report. You have to say, oh, it appears these people are trying to do something. If you know who the potential victim is, you warn the person, be careful, people are trying to attack you, assault you, and these are the precautions you have to make. That is the person that is a man, not the person that because of peer pressure, because he wants to belong, he wants to join cult, and the cult initiation says you must waylay a girl. You cannot stand and say, no, I will not use my masculinity in this negative way. Fathers should be counseled to take responsibility in child upbringing. Premarital sex and extramarital sex should be discouraged. Truly, if a boy says, I'm going to keep myself pure until I'm married, he will not be involved in rape. If a man says, the only woman that I'm going to sleep is my wife, he will not be involved in rape. So many times, there is something that is motivating the perpetrators. And that is why for us to end it, we must find out what motivates them. And we also have to teach how rape can be avoided. The first step in preventing any crime is to avoid placing oneself in a vulnerable position. Right now, what is the in thing is they are just kidnapping, not just one person now, bus loads of people. And most of the time, it happens by road. So if you want to make sure that your chances of being kidnapped is reduced to the barest minimum, you don't travel by road. If you cannot travel by air, you stay in your house and stay in your community and continue to do whatever you're doing until this madness stops. So the same thing with this sexual violence. How do you avoid yourself being in a vulnerable position? One of them is don't walk alone at night. Don't walk alone at night, because if they want to attack and you want to call for help, there's nobody. Keep car doors locked, particularly when you are the one driving. Check the back seat of the car in case somebody gets in. And if they're giving directions to someone, maintain a distance between oneself and the stranger's car so that they cannot quickly jump out and then attack you and put the person in the car and so on. Hitchhiking and admitting strangers to one's home should be avoided. You don't know the person. I know that some people will say you are trying to be kind, but if you are a woman and you know that you're alone and somebody is now saying, oh, he has a problem and so on, you say, sorry, I'm a woman alone. I cannot allow you to come into my house. So those are some of the things you can do to avoid it. If a repairman is expected, please make sure you have one person at home. You cannot have maybe a little girl, a house girl, or a child of the family, and she's like less than 10 years old. The electrician will come, and you know that she's going to be alone. Don't allow the electrician to come when she is going to be alone. You need to let them know that they must do. If you have a plumber, if you have a please wait till I'm home. Don't come during the time you do to prevent and end sexual violence. Now, what if, in spite of taking care to make sure that she doesn't place herself in a vulnerable position, a woman finds herself face to face with a man threatening rape? What are some of the alternatives? One way is to talk out of the situation. I remember a relative of mine who said that she she was alone at home and armed robbers attacked. And they were now discussing amongst themselves how they were going to assault her sexually. And she just told them, please, it's better you just kill me, because she knew she wouldn't be able to live with the horror and nightmare of having to remember such a terrible experience. Maybe that determination was what made them to back off. Then others have done some repulsive physical acts such as vomiting, urinating, defecating, belching, or fainting, so as to put the attacker off. On the other hand, some people feel that behaving in a friendly, solicitous manner to gain the confidence of the attacker can be used or has been used successfully by some women. Then again, verbal self-defense may be effective, and even physical self-defense is an option. Some people have gone to learn how to do taekwondo and karate so that they can ensure that if they are attacked, they can defend themselves. So females have been taught from birth not to fight or do anything that looks like you are being masculine. So sometimes, because of their upbringing, when they are being attacked, they just succumb because they do not have that courage. They've not been brought up to have that courage, and they find physical resistance impossible. So another thing is when there is not maybe forceful attack or assault, and you have children that feel inferior, they have low self-esteem, then they can be manipulated with their minds. And people may begin to use all sorts of coercive measures to get these children to succumb to sexual violence. So for you to end that, you have to let them to have a positive self-image. As much as possible, get your children to have treats. Even if you don't have money to go to one of the posh hotels, go to a place as a family and buy snacks and celebrate special days like birthdays and so on, so that some of these things that people use to lure these young people, they will say, no, I've been there, done that. My parents have taken me to this place. My parents have bought these things for me. So I do not need you to give me those things with the hope of me succumbing to your sexual advances. And if somebody is attacked, an institution like the church would be very helpful in counseling and helping the person overcome it so that the person doesn't come up with psychological problems, and the person knows what kind of treatments can be made to make sure that the person doesn't get pregnant, sexually transmitted infections, HIV, and so on. So because many times it is to the church leaders that victims run to. And if the church leader does not have the right orientation, they will not be able to help such victims. And then when it also comes to the legal aspects of having to prosecute, these church members, church leaders, they're supposed to know. And that is why a program like this is very important, so that everybody, every institution comes to support this activity of ending sexual violence. Many times victims have nobody to confide in, and that's why you get them committing suicide or they do other things because nobody they could not talk to. So I'm going to share with us right now some reported incidents of sexual violence when I was national president of the Medical Women's Association from 2019 to 2021. The first is a 14-year-old girl that was raped and strangulated. She almost died. The second was assaulted sexually by her father from age 7 to 10. He was only relieved by periods of separation of father from mother. And she was threatened that she would be killed if she reported the incident. The third was lured into the bush by a middle-aged man who threatened her with a dagger and raped her, then beat her up and threatened her family if she reported the incident. The fourth was lured with the sister to a location by some boys and then raped by 3 men. So those 3 men, they must have given money or some incentive to those boys that lured. Probably those boys know this victim. And so they knew that if they convince her that come and meet us somewhere or follow me somewhere, then they will be available and they'll be able to achieve their objective. So what we are saying is that when these men were incentivizing the boys, one of those boys should have said, no, this is wrong. And then why would 3 men now begin to attack a girl? If it is for sexual pleasure, they have call girls that they can pay for and go and get their, so we will see why some men, instead of going to the brothels and paying to have that sexual activity, some of them are married, some of them have families, and yet they still need to carry out this criminal act. We will see one of the reasons. And then there was another one, the final one, that had serious sexual abuse from different perpetrators, and it resulted in pregnancy, and she was now ostracized from her community. That is why the community has to be sensitized for them to know that it is not the victim that should be ostracized, but they should find the perpetrator. And most times, if you are able to get the perpetrator, you find out that the perpetrator has attempted to do such a thing or has done it. By the time so many people are accusing, not because challenge is the proof. How are you going to prove that this man did it? But by the time 4 women or 4 young girls have complained that this man has done something criminal, then even if you can't prove it, you should watch it. You should watch and monitor the person so that you can catch the person in the act. So my participants, I want to thank you because I know that by being here, you are interested in joining forces with us to end sexual violence. This particular poster is designed by Berachah Community Clinic Youth Friendly Center, the organizer of this program in collaboration with Public Health Impact Research Center. And we want this information to go around. Anybody that is experiencing sexual assault or abuse, send a text to the phone number here, 081-412-89365, so that they can receive free confidential management and care. We listen, we believe, we support. We want people to know that they are not alone. The fact that the institutions that ideally are supposed to be providing this service are not doing so doesn't mean that others cannot come on board. Now, the next thing, as we are giving out, the first is to give out the information so that everybody knows. If you know of anybody that has experienced this or is experiencing this, send a text and we'll make the confidential inquiry that will help end that person's nightmare. The next thing is to follow a rape protocol. This rape protocol was designed by my colleague when she was Assistant Director of Public Health in the Delta State Ministry of Health. She's currently the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health. And we have been advocating that people should use this protocol because by the time you get all the relevant information, follow all the instructions step by step, you'll be able to make a case that will be so solid that if that perpetrator gets prosecuted, the likelihood of getting convicted. For instance, many of these victims are not aware that after this thing has occurred, they should not go and have their bath. They should first go to the hospital so that they can do a speculum examination, collect samples from her body that will be able to trace who the perpetrator is through the DNA test. So if she has had a bath and all that evidence is washed away, how do you now get the perpetrator? And that is why the perpetrators, many of them are emboldened because they know that it will be difficult to prove. But with the DNA test, it's possible to prove, but you must give that instruction to the victim. And then you do other things like the gynecological history, the physical examination, the sample collection, and then you go ahead and do the treatment. The treatment is such that pregnancy is avoided, HIV is avoided, sexually transmitted infections, all these things are avoided. And then you also refer the person for social rehabilitation. Remember, many of the perpetrators, it is to dehumanize, humiliate. But if the person can go through all the relevant treatments and come out of it successfully, he can become something in life, and that would be a shame for the perpetrator. That's why the services have to be there and the protocol has to be followed so that nobody gets mad for the rest of her life because of this experience. Oprah Winfrey was a victim of sexual violence, but by the special grace of God, she overcame it and became very, very confident. And now she's one of the richest women in the world. So it's important for the victims to have that social rehabilitation that will make them move forward and put shame to the perpetrator. Another thing we need is a task force, particularly for the sexual violence occurring through ritual. The first time I heard about this was in 2015 when I asked one of the policewomen that came to talk at the medical women's program. I think it was either in Warri or Sapele. And I said, have you been able to convict some of the perpetrators? And she said, yes. Then I said, fine. Have you been able to find out what motivated them, particularly those that carry out sexual violence on minors, 2-year-old? Will you say the 2-year-old dressed in a sexy manner? Will you say the 2-year-old insulted the person? It was then she said that it is for ritual. That these babalawos tell them that for you to get rich, you have to go and have sex with a minor. For you to solve your health problem, you have to go and get sex with a minor. For you to win that case in court that has been on 10 years, you have to. So when they give them this instruction, they go ahead and do that. I even heard of, there was one that we saw on the social media, a news item, was convicted, and when they asked, when they unraveled the reason, said the Babalawo told him that after receiving the whatever medicine that the Babalawo was providing or whatever, he was supposed to go and have sex with someone. He got home and asked the wife that he wanted to have sex. The wife said she didn't have time, he's very busy. He now went and had sex with the 2-year-old or the daughter. And that was when alarm was raised, and he was now prosecuted and convicted. So when I heard about the case, I had to send a message to the church. I said, what about the Babalawo? What's going to happen to the Babalawo? He said that there is need for prosecutors to put the Babalawo, if they can identify who the Babalawo is, as a co-defendant, that if they are not aware that it's not just the direct perpetrator, but this other person. But the other challenge we have is that witchcraft, ritual, and all these things, they are not offenses, they are not criminal offenses in the Constitution of Nigeria. So that is why we advocate for a task force that will allow for special punishment to be made for these type of activities that are carried out for ritual purposes. This was when we presented our petition on this call for a task force to the Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Pauline Tallen, in Jos in 2021, when she was Minister of Affairs. Unfortunately, she completed her tenure as minister and nothing has been done. But we are saying it because we're going to put this information on YouTube. Somebody will watch, somebody would listen, and we pray that we get such a task force that can deal with this. Because the current legal system in Nigeria, based on the Constitution of Nigeria, is not able to deal with this particular issue. So that is the call of M1. M1 is the Medical Women's Association of Nigeria. And
how much for that one, Esther? No.
We said, do they kindly sign this letter to all relevant policymakers in Nigeria, calling for the establishment of a national task force on elimination of violence against women and girls occurring through ritual activities in Nigeria, with branches in all states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, pending when appropriate laws are enacted to provide a sustainable solution to this menace. So we hope one day we'll have a legal system that can deal with rituals. But pending, let us have a task force to deal with them. Now I'm going to give you some brilliant examples of activities that have been done to contribute to ending sexual violence. And this is by the Medical Women's International Association, Violence Against Women and Girls Special Interest Group, of which I am the chair, like I mentioned earlier. We have partnership, and the partnership is for training. We've organized one global training during the regional congress of the Medical Women's International Association near Eastern African region, which held in Zambia, Livingstone, Zambia, in May. We can conduct research. We're proposing to do some documentary review of how many people under the auspices of this association have actually implemented activities based on the reports submitted to our editors since the triennium began in June 2022. We have conducted advocacy through distribution of flyers, distribution, circulation of videos, particularly when we are celebrating either in the International Women's Day or when we have things, this 15 days of activism against gender-based violence. So that advocacy will continue. It's a continuous thing. Monitoring and evaluation is something that we are planning to do very soon. And then grant writing. Grant writing is for fundraising. And I will share with you one of our most recent fundraising projects. And of course, awareness creation. So whenever we partner, we have partners like Every Woman Treaty. We have other partners that are either supporting our work or planning to support the work and so on. And then documentation. Every quarter we submit our reports of activities to our editor for publication in the newsletter so that people can go back and see what we are doing and they can copy and replicate. Best practices are supposed to be copied and replicated so that they are sustained. We may not have all the resources to do it everywhere, but if we do in some pilot places and people who are committed to this objective of ending sexual violence, when they see it, they will replicate. And the provision of resource materials, go to our website, you see a lot of materials on research that have been done, projects that have been done, even articles, journal articles, and so many other things like you have manuals, training manuals, all these things are there that people can use and develop programs, implement, monitor, plan, implement, and evaluate programs. So one of the activities we carried out was a webinar on international and regional instruments to roll back violence against women and girls. And this was organized in March last year. Now we discovered that there are, or we were able to lay our hands on 3 international instruments like the Beijing platform for the Beijing platform for action. And then we also have the CEDAW. And then we also have regional instruments like the Maputo Declaration. That one is for Africa under the auspices of the African Union. We also have the Istanbul Convention for the European and so on. And it was so enlightening because we now discover that these different instruments, some countries, they have committed to their regional instruments, but they have not committed to the international instrument. So sometimes those things create loopholes. And without this, a very stringent legal instrument, sometimes it's difficult for you to convict, it's difficult for you to prosecute, it's difficult for you to sanction. And so it's important that we know what instruments contain. And then we also know our own local instruments. Like we have the Violence Against Persons law in Delta State that was signed by Governor Kowa in 2020. Now, do you know that some states have enacted this BAP law, but there are still many states that have not bothered. So the issue is, these are some of the things we can advocate for, that those instruments should be available. Then we have done awareness creation. This is a flyer on the global call for elimination of violence against women and girls. And we need to make sure that the health workers are trained. We need to make sure that legal institutions provide and circulate hotlines. We need to conduct research so that we know what is the best intervention that can end sexual violence. We don't have to keep doing the same thing that is not making impact. So that's why monitoring and evaluation is working. If we had, for instance, 100 cases of sexual violence in 2023, can we say that, look, let us do all we can to make sure that we reduce it to 50 in 2024, 20 in 2025, until one day we will not even have one case, because that is our goal, our overall goal, to end it completely, that it will never be heard of. We also do advocacy to males. We want the men, particularly the boys, because the boys are watching older men behave in this nasty manner and they are copying. So we need to catch them young and let them know what they are supposed to do. Inform them to understand what consensual sex means, and that rape is a crime. The rapist can get convicted and be listed in the sex offenders registry where available. So we have a sex offenders registry. I'm happy that there's one functioning in that state, and these people will be put there and their photographs put there. So we hope that very soon the number of cases of sexual assault that we get, sexual violence that we get, should be equal to the number of people in the sexual offenders register, sex offenders register. So if in 2024 we had 100 cases of sexual violence, by the end of 2024 we should have 100 names in the register. That is something that we can monitor and evaluate and find out what is preventing their names. Is it because of prosecution? Is it because of money? Is it because of awareness? And so on. Is it because the authorities are not serious? All these are things that we can do to end sexual violence. During the 2024 International Women's Day, our special interest group, we popularized the 5-point agenda of a global treaty to eliminate violence against women and girls. Level the law. We are trying to say that all these laws must come together into one treaty that will be implemented globally, so that loopholes in the different laws, whether it's international, regional, or local, will not be used to perpetuate this particular crime. Training, like I told you, we did a global training in May, and this month we're also planning another training during another regional congress that is taking place in Bangkok, Thailand. Prevention education. These flyers that we have distributed, we need to take them to boys' schools, we need to take them to girls' schools, so that everybody will be aware. We need to share them in the churches. We need to put them on social media. Now, those are the 3 of the 5-point agenda that we have been implementing under the auspices of the Medical Women's International Association. But there are 2 that we are now planning to implement, and that is provision of services and dedicated funding. This is the training we had. You can see our Medical Women's International Association executive Dr. Lino Wadinobi, who is the president, she's from Nigeria, and Dr. Miriam Jashi, who is the Secretary General from Georgia. And then we also had the resource persons who spoke, and that was the first training. We intend to have several, and when the triennium is ending in Egypt, September next year, we're also going to have another one. So by the end of the day, we'll be able to say, yes, we have trained people, and those people that we have trained should go and train others. Now, this is the Sexual Assault Referral Center kits. And you can see that it is the Medical Women's International Association donating this kit as part of provision of services. And donation is being sponsored by the Public Health Impact Research Center. Now, what are the things in the kit? We have the rape management checklist of protocol that I mentioned before to make sure that you follow all the steps you're supposed to take to get the perpetrator prosecuted and convicted. A plastic speculum that is disposable for examination and collecting sample from the victim so that they can do DNA tests. Big paper envelopes to keep relevant items, syringes, 5 mils, sample bottles for urine, and EDTA bottles for blood, swab sticks so that you can take a high vaginal swab, Ziploc bags to keep some of the items that are supposed to be preserved, black nylon bags, that is for keeping the items after the victim has been examined and so on. You put her clothes that she was wearing in the black nylon bag, and then you give her a new change of clothes to wear. Masking tape for labeling specimen and other things, latex disposable gloves for many of the procedures that will be carried out, surgical gloves, and even surgical blade. All these things are supposed to be in the kits. There are a few other things that are supposed to be there. Some of these drugs and so on and all that, but that would depend on the center, because we want something that can be placed in almost even the lowest centers, but higher centers may have more sophisticated things. Now, why is it necessary? By the time Berachah Community Clinic was establishing the youth-friendly center last year, and we said that management of cases of sexual assault would be one of our activities, we decided to find out from the sexual assault reference centers that were existing already in Delta State, and there are 3. We have one for Delta North in Asaba Specialist Hospital. We have one for Delta Central in Central Hospital, Whaley, and then one for Delta South in Central Hospital, Warri. And we were very, very surprised to find out that many of these places, they did next to nothing for the victims. When the victim comes, the victim has to pay for their card, pay for the drugs, pay for the gloves, pay for all these things. And when the patient cannot pay for all these things, they just carry themselves and just go away. So there will be no prosecution. So we said at least majority of the things that we need for examination, sample collection, and all that, let it be available there so that at least the investigations can be done and prosecution can commence. That is why we are now providing this sexual assault referral center kit. And another thing they complained about is that after the centers were inaugurated or commissioned rather, that the only thing they provide is maybe what do they call it now? Post-exposure prophylaxis for HIV, because HIV drugs, HIV tests and HIV drugs are free in most of our government hospitals. And then counseling. And so what if the person cannot afford all these things that require the litigation that needs to follow after this? That is why we are making this provision. Then again, I also heard of a case in one of the referral centers. The lady was so badly assaulted that she even had to go to theater. And that particular hospital, God bless the MD, they had to spend as much as 80,000 for her treatments. Now, when she finally recovered and was to be discharged, they got the phone number of the father and called the father that he should come and pick up his daughter. Father said that he doesn't have money to come and pay transport to pick up his daughter. They had to use the hospital ambulance. So I want you to know the level of lack that is associated. And when people have next to nothing and they are now traumatized with sexual violence on top, what kind of human being do you think that person is going to turn out to be? And then we, as responsible members of society, are we going to just watch and say, it's not my business? That's why we all have to contribute. So our special interest group, we are now raising funds. We are asking people to donate funds to make this box, put these items in the box, and then identify a sexual assault reference center and make that donation. By the special grace of God, we are going to be donating to the 3 sexual assault referral centers that we have in Delta State, as well as the Berachah Community Clinic, which is also going to be providing similar services. Now, what are other things we can do? We can use the uniform template to submit documentation on violence against women and girls. The reports that I gave to you, those 6 cases, it's because we're getting reports from all over the country. Oh, this thing happened in Rivers State, this will happen in Benue State, this will happen in Edo State. So we're able to know exactly what happened because they followed the template. And through the template, they were telling us how the person was lured, how the person was tricked, how the person was relayed. And so we now know that these are the gimmicks. These are the strategies perpetrators use. And we can now tell people, be careful. When you are going out, these are the things. If somebody is now asking you, oh, come and let me follow you from nowhere, go with somebody else. Don't go alone, especially when you become suspicious. Strengthening of family courts where cases of sexual violence are tried. The family courts are very weak. And the family courts are supposed to act like a mobile court so that the case will not continue to be adjourned over and over, and the victim and their families will get tired. The family court should be able to handle the cases. And even if they cannot, how do you call it now? Particularly when it's a family member that has taken place. Many times you take it to police, police will say you should go and settle. Give them money to compensate them. How can you compensate somebody who has lost her virginity through sexual violence? So the family court will be able to find out punitive measures that will stick. Even if it is the uncle, even if it's the father, they will know how to go about it. Questioning of the convicted perpetrators to identify motivating factors. I've told you how ritual from Babalawo telling these men to solve their problem is one of the motivating factors. There may be others. If you don't ask, you will not find out. And when you don't find out the motivating factor, how do you end it? You need to deal with the root cause so that it no longer happens in our society. And monitoring and evaluation using key performance indicators. So the key performance indicators that will determine if we are getting close to our goal for ending sexual violence. 1, number of health units that adopted a protocol for clinical management of rape survivors. So if we look at our tertiary hospitals now, how many do we have? We have Asaba Specialist, Special Medical Center, Del Suit. And do they all have this protocol? Are they using it? If we look at our general hospitals, if we look at our private hospitals, do they have this protocol? Are they using it? At least Berachah Community Clinic, which is a private hospital, a private clinic, they have this protocol. And if they get a case of this, there will be a sexual violence, they will be able to use that as the guide. Number of persons trained on interventions to end sexual violence. Training can take in various forms. You can have an orientation like what we're having today. You can have a training of trainers, which may take up to 5 days. You can have just a basic training, which can take like 5 hours. But no matter what happened, so far as you have gotten new information that can help you contribute, whether you're a health worker or not, even if you are not listed amongst the usual groups that deal with it, you can provide resources. There was a particular colleague of mine when we went to the Medical Women's International Association Centenary Congress in New York. This was 2019. We were sharing a room, and she had a presentation. I had a presentation. So I decided to on against a pregnant woman. The woman had misunderstanding with the husband. The husband used a knife to stab her, and the knife penetrated her abdomen and went as far as a laceration on the buttocks of the baby. By the time they took her to theater and treated her, the man ran. That was one of the experiences. So she gave a case report, and I now asked her that she should please give me the soft copy and give me permission to make it into a flyer that anywhere I'm talking about violence against women and girls, particularly intimate partner violence from spouses, I am going to use that flyer. And I now had an opportunity to be in London, and I put it in the presentation that I was making for a group that was organizing an event. In fact, one of the men that came all the way from US, he said after my presentation, the next he couldn't sleep against gender-based just because of that from my colleague. So what we are saying is that you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a nurse, you don't have to be a social worker. You can support with funding to help deal with this matter. So this orientation, we hope we'll be able to get a lot of people who will support. Now, number of sexual assault referral center kits, like four. There may be 6 more centers in the next 2 years. Somebody can come and provide 6. Then people can go to Edo State, identify how many they have, maybe 10, provide 10. So as we are getting information as to how many places have been provided with these kits, we will know whether we are doing well. Our hope is that if we have 500 centers in the whole of Nigeria, each of them should have a kit with all the relevant material provided free of charge. Number of cases of prosecuted sexual violence that resulted in conviction. This is information we can get from the courts, we can get from the Ministry of Justice, we can also get from the police, we can get from FIDA. FIDA keeps very, very good records, and we appreciate them for that. Number of schools delivering violence prevention and respectful relationship education. So we have a lot of school outreach programs, but the question now is how do we sustain? On Sunday, I had a meeting of the Old Girls Association of Federal Government Girls College, and they were planning a school program. And I asked, after that event, what next? So we started thinking of how to follow up. First, we can find out, do they have a health club? Through the health club, we can follow up to know how far are they continuing what we have taught them about preventing or ending sexual violence. Another way is to get the contacts of the prefects, and from time to time, find out what they're doing. Another way is to at least once a term. So it needs this action because we've even had a where some boys from one of the mixed schools, whether it was part of their cult activity, outfits, what they were wearing, just because they wanted to do that. And it became such a terrible scandal. So we need to go to these schools and let them know that it is not acceptable and it will not be tolerated. And those boys should be put in the remand home for juvenile delinquents as a deterrent to others who will ever think of such things. So we need to go and take preventive education to these people. Number of solutions implemented to end the sexual violence. For instance, how many short short-term shelters for victims we have? This issue of shelter is very important, particularly if the person that is assaulting is a family member. Now, if the person is like the child or stepchild of the perpetrator, where will she run to? So there has to be. And what if it is intimate partner violence? If it is the spouse, I know they said it's impossible for a husband to rape the wife, but certain situations where it may be so violent that the woman now requires some space to go and recover or get treated, where will she stay? So there should be mechanism. I used to say that for short stay, if there are organizations that are supporting the sheltering of victims, one of the things they can do is hotel for a while until the person gets a place of her own, pending when they resolve the pending the resolution of attack. Legal advice and find out of all the cases that countries. So as a region, we need to come out and with a position on it. How many times have we at our African Union meetings and so on come out with a position on this matter? Celebration of the girl child. It was when we were thinking of how to celebrate, we were organizing our colleagues told us that her nephew came back from school and said something terrible happened. They called all the girls and took them to somewhere and taught them things, and they left us boys. It was then I knew that we need to carry the boys along. So, that was one of the things we did. I found out the whole notions that there is no tolerance for such a thing and it must not be done. So we would recommend that all stakeholders, both government and non-governmental, should as a matter of urgency engage their traditional institutions to put in measures to end sexual violence as well as discourage the practice of ritualists in the communities. The traditional ruler, he knows that Babalawo that told that man that he should go and assault a 2-year-old. They should ostracize them. They should make them oriented on the legal actions to be initiated in all this. So our health workers should be familiar with the BAP law and they should know what and what they need to do. They should have the hotlines of legal institutions that they will give to the victims to help prosecute their case. The general public should be sensitized on the ploys of ritualists who motivate persons to commit heinous acts, including sexual abuse of minors, in a bid to get rich quickly or meet some other need. And in conclusion, a multi-sectoral approach to ending sexual violence would require sharing of information between stakeholders, as well as organization of joint programs to achieve the required behavior change that can open doors for sustainable solutions. We want solutions that will not work only in 2024, but they will be sustained to a point where we will not even have one reported case of sexual violence in our society. Aggressive domestication of international instruments such as the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, as well as local instruments such as the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law by government and non-governmental organizations, will be a step in the right direction to end sexual violence in our lifetime. So this is the Violence Against Persons Law, Delta State 2020. a law to eliminate violence in private and public life, prohibit all forms of violence against persons, and to provide maximum protection and effective remedies for victims and for punishments of offenders and other matters concerned with. You will see that this law is probably going to say almost everything I have said, but people don't even know that this law exists. And if they even have the law, many of them are not ready to see the contents. It was signed, like I said, by His Excellency Governor Kowa in 2020, and he has done well. But he can't do it alone. You and I have to domesticate it, create awareness, ensure that victims are able to use the law to prosecute offenders and perpetrators and get justice. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for this 1 hour you have listened to me patiently on this topic of ending sexual violence. It is doable. Yes, we can. Thank you so much. We shall now take questions. While waiting to take questions, may I recognize some of the people that are in the room? Ambassador Eris, thank you so much for joining. We have Dr. Abudu Enovo. We also have Gabriel. Thank you. And we have our own Elder Margaret Obiko. And we also have Dr. Onyi Owawabuzo. She is the chair, coordinator, national coordinator of Association Against Sexual and Gender-Based Violence. Thank you all for coming. I have my own team, Michael, Nisa. Thank you. I believe Nurse Rachel is joining with one of the other devices. I want to thank you all for coming. So I'm going to put, if you have any question, please, you can signify by raising your hand. I'm going to put in the chat the link to the Telegram group, as well as the number. I had mentioned it at the beginning when I was giving the welcome address. So that link, we have the Raising 1,000 Nigerian Youths with a Vision. This started in 2000 and 2022, yes. So 2022. And we have about 90 that have joined the, the campaign, and they are all on Telegram. Now, that group, we give them a lot of information about scholarship programs, empowerment programs. We have organized an essay competition, we've organized a quiz, and so on and so forth. So that group is the one that we would like the majority of our people to get in, because we want to get up to 1,000. And this 1,000 was supposed to be for 2023. So by 2024, it was supposed to be 2,000. By the time we get to, I think, Telegram, I don't know whether the maximum is 5,000. We will now set up a new one. But the most important thing is that every year we want 1,000. And then for the youth club, Public Health Impact Research Center Youth Club, the benefit of joining that club is that if there is a scholarship you are applying for and you're a member, we will give you a referral letter to support your scholarship. And then again, we will also include the activities the club has been doing since it was established almost 20 years ago in 2005. So even if you are just a recent member, you will now kind of benefit from the previous activities, and they'll know that you are belonging to a club that knows where it's going and is really committed to getting youth to behave responsibly. And then we also have Berachah Community Clinic Youth-Friendly Center. We offer free counseling and testing for HIV. And this is every Tuesday from 12 noon to 3 p.m. And then next Tuesday, the last grand finale of our 4-week series is a quiz. Now we had 3 sessions The first session was preventing HIV. The second session was preventing drug abuse. And the third session is today, ending sexual violence. So the quiz is going to be via Zoom on the 27th of August, exactly 1 week, 4 o'clock, between 4 and 5 will be done, by 5 will be done. And there's a prize for questions on preventing HIV, 10,000. The person that gets the highest score. There's a prize for ending sexual violence. There's a prize for questions on ending sexual violence. There's a 10,000 naira prize also for preventing drug abuse. So somebody, a youth that is smart between the ages of 15 and 30, because we're going to ask for, the winner is going to, before we declare you the winner, we're going to ask, before we give you your prize, we're going to ask you to bring evidence of age declaration. So somebody that is smart will be able to get all the 3 prizes and go home with 30,000. What do you need to do? The YouTube link of each of these sessions, we are going to circulate it to the platforms through which you came. And then you look at it. We're also going to circulate the PowerPoint presentation. And then you come ready to win minimum of 10,000, maximum of 30,000. So thank you so much. Any questions? No questions. So I would like to thank everyone for participating. It has been my joy. I didn't know I could just talk for 1 hour without getting tired at my age. Aries, you see now, I'm bubbling like you now. Ambassador Aries, are you there?
I've committed myself. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
For 1 hour, and I wasn't tired.
It's very good. I saw you 2 weeks ago, ma'am, and you were bubbling, and I smiled at that reception. One wedding of I saw you when you came in. Yes, ma'am. I was just happy when I saw you move the way I moved. I say, yes, that's my leader. Thank God, ma'am.
So, thank you so much. So, like I said, it's been such a wonderful. I'm not bothered about the numbers. Most of these our sessions we've not had large numbers because we are having the recording, and we are hoping that the recording will get to hundreds of people. I was going through the YouTube channel the other day, and the program we had on aging about a month ago. Do you know that I think on the 1st of July, when we're celebrating 1 year of our Senior Citizen Center in Berachah Community Clinic, do you know we had 385 views? I said, oh my God, YouTube will start paying me money.
Technology is really helping our work.
So 30 people, but now we've had 385 views. So I'm more focused on just getting it done, keeping the recording, putting it on YouTube, and then we start circulating, and hopefully people will watch and we will be empowered to contribute. We can do it. We can, and posterity will thank us. Hopefully, when we are at the ripe old age of 80 and beyond, we will not hear about it anymore. They will be telling grandchildren and great-grandchildren, we were part of ending sexual violence in Nigeria and Africa. So we're going to ask everyone to please put on your cameras, and we'll take a photo. That is one of the things we normally do. We take a photo and group photograph. Everybody, please. Miss Sam, put on your camera now. Michael, Gabriel, Meg, all right, put on your cameras. Ekam that just joined us, no problem. You will get the recording, and we are looking forward to having the outcome of this beautiful moment. Thank you all for joining us, and do have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you.